great to hook up with you on Zoom. Sadly, we can't do it in person, but good to talk to you and welcome.
Yeah, you too, Jane. Nice to see you.
So we're here today, we're reflecting on the What If campaign and all that it's achieved and the wonderful buzz and energy that it's created. And obviously Barclays has been a key player in that as the lead partner of Women in Football and of the What If campaign. So I wonder, from your point of view, just explain some of the reasons for getting on board with it and partnering with Women in Football.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of this predates me, Jane, at Barclays, but we've had a very long history with football, and in fact, at a point in time this year, we will celebrate 20 years involvement in the professional game, and that's a big milestone for us. A major part of that period of time has been focused on the men's game and the professional men's game, as you know. And that's been an incredibly rewarding partnership for us, for customers, for colleagues. But there came a point when we realised that that focus was on the men's professional game in a very male-dominated and male-driven environment. And I think about 10 years ago, we commenced some conversations with Women in Football, because we were, I guess, both interested and impressed with the intent and the work that was being done to make the football environment, both on and off the pitch, much more diverse and equitable and accessible. And for us, that was really important. And from that point forward, that relationship has grown to where we are today. So we see it as an incredibly valuable partnership, and one that absolutely complements everything that we do within football, which to date has predominantly focused around on the pitch activity. But clearly, as you know better than most of us, football and the industry is much broader than the team on the pitch. There's hundreds of thousands of people who are involved in making the game what it is on and off the pitch, and that's a big part of what you do to make that happen.
And we work with Barclays, we work together on several things. So we work together on our leadership courses and other personal development work that we do. But thinking about the What If campaign in particular, so Barclays first got on board with this with a pledge back in 2018. And for people who don't know, the concept of the What If campaign, it's a wonderful concept in its simplicity and in its impact, is that organisations and people from across the football industry can make a pledge to take one action to truly help change the landscape for women in the game. So Barclays got on board the campaign early in its first edition in 2018 with a fantastic What If pledge. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, indeed, it was it was, I suppose, the premise of it was based around research, and it was a commitment to better understand what was going on in the industry, and how people who were working in the industry, and in particular women, were finding it, or indeed what were the barriers to entry, so that in partnership with WIF, we could start to look at how do you address some of those, and how do you continue on this journey to make it a much more diverse and inclusive work environment. And I think we did one of the biggest pieces of research that's been done in this area, and there were some fascinating findings coming out of it that I know within WIF you're working hard on at the moment to address, not least working very closely with HR communities across football clubs to help break down some of those barriers to entering into the game, and why actually today some women still feel uncomfortable entering into that place of work and that environment, which in many respects is still quite male dominated. So that piece of research was incredibly valuable, and I think something that we would look to keep doing on a regular basis, because it also helps us understand how the industry is responding to the work that we're doing as well.
And I think for us, you're absolutely right. It is valuable. We've over the years built up a knowledge bank, partly from that, partly from our own member surveys that we've done. But we were able to take that piece of research, which had, I think what distinguished it maybe from other research was the qualitative aspect, and the fact that we've worked with focus groups and got some fantastic individual comments and insights from women. And we were able to take that, as you say, and discuss it with HR leaders across the industry. And believe me, they've learned from it. They found it really interesting. So we absolutely want to keep those conversations going. And from my point of view, it's a perfect example of how What If does change the industry. This is that one action, we open up a conversation with the industry, and that leads to...
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in 2019, a wonderful event that we had in London to mark the anniversary of the What If campaign. I know you were there, Tom, and I know you enjoyed it as much as I did. But the FA made a pledge, and I must admit it's one that made me cry. We got notice of it earlier in the day, and when I saw the FA that they when I saw the FA's pledge was to offer every schoolgirl in England the opportunity to play football. You know, I thought back to when I was a little girl, and I shed a tear. Now, they don't do that alone, and Barclays play a key role in that. So would you like to tell us more about that?
To talk a little bit about that. And I reflect back on that event, and I know you and I spoke about it afterwards. I mean, I was really moved that evening, seeing that group of people in that room making a whole range of pledges that have the ability and continue to transform the football industry on and off the pitch for women. And that was my first real experience of the power of What If, and made me realise how important this is to help us achieve what we're trying to achieve. And in addition to the research, you know, we feel very proud that we've been supporting the FA with their commitment, and ultimately their What If pledge, which is to make football available to every girl in England by 2024. It's amazing to think that we live in a world today where that is not available. There is not equal access for girls playing, and it is absolutely not a level playing field. And so that commitment that we've made in partnership with the FA will see us ensure that every girl in England has exactly the same opportunity as a boy to play football in school. And it's not about football for football's sake. It's about giving them the choice and the options, and allowing them to experience football and the benefits that it will give them in later life. You know, we believe in equality and diversity, both at Barclays and in everything that we do. And I talked a little bit earlier on about our 17, 18, 19 years involved in the men's game. It's absolutely right that we now turn a big part of that attention to the women's game, and making that you know, a big part of what we do. To make that happen, we believe that girls need to be given the ability to play. It's as much about seeing the talent on the pitch in the Women's Super League day in, day out, as it is about giving younger girls the ability to play at school alongside boys in the right environment. So for us, that FA commitment is a significant one we're very proud to support. It's progressing incredibly well. We now have 42% coverage across the UK. Across England. So that's nearly 9,000 schools where girls have exactly the same access as boys, as they should. And within a couple of years' time, we are hoping, or we intend for that to be at 100%.
Tom, and it so aligns with something women in football are all about, which we always say, using the phrase from the old suffragette, deeds, not words. You know, we're about action, not talk, and making the change. And from your partnership with the FA so far, could you tell us some of the positive outcomes that you've seen for girls and women's football? I know we've been through very difficult and challenging times.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. I mean, I think from the moment that we made the announcement to be the title sponsor of the Women's Super League, we saw an unprecedented level of coverage, and a huge amount of support for the investment that we were making, and that really took us by surprise. And I suppose that's that's for someone who hasn't directly experienced some of the challenges or the challenges that women and girls face in this space. That's probably why I was taken by surprise. And this has been a journey for me to learn more about it day in and day out. But absolutely, the response from the press, the sports press, from our customers, from our clients was overwhelming. And in fact, today, as we track it, we continue to see it's one of the things that make people most proud to work for Barclays, and indeed for customers to be associated with us. And that means a huge amount to us. But then I think it's down to the impact that we see us having on women and girls around the country. We've enjoyed seeing the professional league grow, even over the last 18 to 24 months, whether it's the coverage, whether it's the volume of broadcasting deals, which have been record breaking, whether it's been record numbers at stadiums. You've got players now who are household names that weren't 2 or 3 years ago. We don't take the credit for that. A lot of that credit's down to the players themselves, the FA, and of course, women in football as well. But that makes us incredibly proud to be associated with it, and just see how the focus on women's football has completely shifted over the last 18 to 24 months, and the impact that we see this having, particularly on young girls as well. So the ability for them to be able to experience role models on the pitch, some of these big names, actually, whether they are male or female. And we've been a big part of making that happen, and to see the confidence that girls get through being able to play the game day in, day out, and how that sets them up for later life has been incredibly rewarding for us, and some of the real benefits that we are seeing through this partnership, and many more to come.
It's been a traumatic year for everybody, for the country, for wider society, for the world, and for football. And I'm not going to pretend that everything in the garden is rosy in football, and it's not rosy in the garden for women and girls in football. But, and I think there's an important but, I'm now in the position where I think that once we're back to normal, and I do think 2021 will see us begin to turn the corner, that extraordinary period of growth that women's and girls football will resume. And it's wonderful to hear your commitment to it. We hear the same from the FA, we hear the same from other governing bodies. When we look at the workforce, again, our members have told us loud and clear that it's been a very difficult time for them. And of course, most of our members work across the game. They don't work just in women's football. And they've been very clear to us, telling us about their challenges with well-being, with mental health, with anxiety over jobs, etc. So we know that there's still a lot of work to do, and our central mission to create a football industry where everyone can prosper. There's still a lot that needs to be done. So let's do a bit of future gazing, Tom, and talk about our future work together and our shared ambitions for what that might look like.
Yeah, sure. And it's future gazing at the moment, as you rightly point out, James, a little bit challenging. I suppose in the short term, we are, like all of us, we're desperate to particularly get girls back playing football in schools at scale. That's incredibly important, and we want to continue on this journey of training and developing that we're doing with you at the moment, and doing through that relationships that we have with you, but also with many of our allies that we have. I suppose looking forward, Jane, and when you think back to where WIF has come from, and the game has come from, it feels like there is incredible momentum. Some of that has been upset slightly by the pandemic in many ways than one. But that's kind of, there's very few walks of life that haven't been impacted. And I do believe that when things, start to get back to normal and we've all got the jabs in our arms, I think that the need and the desire for football, for both men and women, will be stronger than ever, particularly from a local community perspective, right the way through to the professional game. And obviously that's still playing and running at the moment, which is incredibly important. But I think there will be a real focus on the power of sport, the benefit of sport, the benefit of football. And in turn, that can only help the work that we're doing to grow and attract more allies to the game, to understand some of the challenges that are still faced. I think we are going to see some significant fallouts from this, particularly in the lower leagues, and particularly on the women's side, where the funding is not as strong as it could be. They don't have the deep pockets that some of them the men's clubs do, and there will be impacts there, and there will be some sad stories. But it will come back as the game continues to grow. And I think that the more people that are involved in this and supporting it and moving it in the right direction, the better. So, I do see I do see and hope that there will be a bigger interest in this area, in women's football and sport overall, because I think it will be healing, actually, as we come out of this process, and that can only but help. I think the professional game as such is, despite the pandemic, is continuing to develop. It's continuing to grow. We are still seeing positive signs with broadcasting deals and the ongoing professionalization of the game, and that again is incredibly valuable for the work that women in football are doing. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, there has been an awful lot of press coverage around what's been going on within the Super League and some of the challenges that the clubs have faced around travel. We're not here to debate whether they should or shouldn't have done that. But what's interesting for me is that it is a debate. And if we went back a couple of years, it probably wouldn't have been a debate. And you're seeing this sort of real connection between fans and players that's leading to this debate about whether it's right or wrong. And it just shows that the profile of the game has risen so much for this to be an issue. As I say, I don't want to get into the rights and wrongs, and that's not the intention of this. But the point I make is that the fact that people are so animated around that and want to discuss it, there are some positives within that, because the game has moved on to be, so valuable, so close to people's hearts, professional, and I think that will absolutely continue. That's got to be, managed, and of course there is a lot of concern at the moment around making parallels with the men's game and the salaries involved. And again, I think there's a valuable role for organisations like Women in Football to play there. And I think all the work we do, or you do, around training and development and leadership, particularly within a football environment, can only but help move that in the right direction.
And I agree. And I think that I'm going to use the word momentum. I think there's some momentum around WSL, and it's actually grown since it came back. And I use the word advisedly because, like you, I don't want to underestimate or understate the challenges and the difficulties. I think when I do some future gazing, and believe me, I do it a lot. I could be sitting making a cup of tea, or I was going to say on a bus, but we don't get buses out.
No.
Just thinking, I think, what are we going to be about? What are we going to be about? What are we going to do? And I think our mission and our activities and all the projects we do are going to be more important than ever. Giving that support to women, helping the industry. I agree with you. I don't think everything's going to be quite the way it was. But when I think about What If, and we're here to talk about the What If campaign, and you know what it's like, Tom, when you run a big campaign like that, you check in on it and say, is that still going to be useful? And I think the answer to that is 100% yes. because of the beauty and the simplicity and the appeal of the concept. You can do one thing and it can be a big thing or it could be a small thing. But as we've seen, it does lead to real change. And the other great thing about What If, and I think this touches your point about healing, as you and I have discussed in this conversation, there's such a positive vibe about it.
Yeah.
People join the campaign because they want to.
Yeah.
We don't browbeat people into joining it. That's absolutely fine. It's there for people and organisations who positively want to make that contribution. And we speak to What If pledges a lot, and all of them say, yeah, it's been positive. We got a buzz, you know. So all of which is a long way of saying What If will be part of our future plans.
Absolutely.
And I think given where we're at and where football's at, it is needed.
Should.
The solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously we're called Women in Football, but as you know, a lot of our members are men. And we absolutely love it when men sign up to Women in Football, because male allies are so important to what we do. You're obviously one of our male allies. So talk to us a little bit about that, and, you know, as a man, why do you think it's important? How can we encourage other men to get involved? Why is male allyship a really key issue?
Exactly why we you know, we're very proud to play a role in both the men's and the women's game, Jane, because, you know, we see an incredibly valuable role there, having a relationship with both professional leagues. And it's not about comparing one to the other, but it's about football for all, football for men, football for women, wherever you come from, wherever you live, whatever walk of life. You know, we truly believe about football creating opportunities for all, and that's why our relationship with both the Premier League and the Women's Super League is so incredibly important. But also the ability to use, as you rightly point out, male allies to help promote and champion the game has been so incredibly powerful for us. And I suppose there's a few things that stand out in my mind. I came into this role at Barclays and inherited a relationship and a partnership with Women in Football, and you know, within that time we moved to become the new title sponsor of the Women's Super League. In that period of time was all a learning curve for me. I really did not have a good grasp of what was going on in the football industry and where some of the challenges were for women either wanting to play, whether it's at grassroots level or professionally, right the way through to people who want to work in the industry. I've been incredibly fortunate to spend time with people who've really educated me around that area, and I include yourself within that, Jane, who is someone who's had a phenomenal career in football, and there are many other members of Women in Football who are from a similar background, and I admire their commitment and their passion to taking all of that learning and their experiences and trying to transform it into something good and something that other people don't have to experience when they want to enter into the industry. I've also had the ability to spend time with players and managers, and Kelly Smith is one that always stands out to me, and I love hearing her story and talk about her story. There's parts of it not to love. You know, her experience of trying to make it as a professional in this country was hampered every step of the way, whether it was, you know, people not believing in her, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was simply because girls didn't play football at a professional level. There was no professional league. There were so many barriers that eventually she had to leave the country and go to the US to professionalize. And, you know, stories like that really brought it home to me. And of course, these aren't isolated to football, right? These are isolated to every walk of life, you know, whether it's the corporate world right the way through to the sporting world. So I've had a steep learning curve, but an incredibly valuable learning curve from some very influential people in this area and some very passionate people in this area. And I feel very, very fortunate to have had that. And it's made me opened my eyes to some of the challenges more than I ever had before. And when I bring it right back down to my own situation, and I've talked about this story many times, have a young daughter who was, and today is still faced with some of these challenges in school around playing football, which blows my mind. And so things like that, they annoy you, but they make you want to do more so that other children, other women don't face that. And that's why I believe male allies to be so important. And I don't feel like men have a stronger voice, but I think they do dominate in certain parts of the football industry, and they have very powerful voices and very powerful platforms, particularly when you move over to the professional side, which is why it is absolutely so valuable for them to be a part of this. And you know, another person I've learned a lot from in that space, and who is incredibly passionate about this, is Ian Wright. And you know, we can't deny that Ian is you know, he is famous in his own right. He has a huge following and a huge network of people, and so his commitment and his passion and his sort of pioneering spirit and the momentum he wants to create with transforming the women's game is heard by, you know, hundreds of thousands of people when he talks about it. And that is so incredibly valuable as we all move on this journey, because we can't do it alone. So, you know, for me, the more male allies, the better. You know, I would encourage anyone to come and spend time with women in football, attend one of their events, attend a What If event, and you'll only have to be there for 5 minutes to think, you know, I want to be part of this, and I can make a difference. You know, actually with some very simple things that we don't always think about day in and day out, but can help transform the experience of girls, of women within the game, and make it a better place for all.